What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the film room. I'm your host, Erik Turner. As always, joined by my co-host, Anthony Prohaska from Disguised Coverage. Anthony, I know you did the post game last night. You were hyped this weekend. It was a Monday night game against the Patriots. You're doing, double duty, back-to-back nights. It was a rough night to sleep, I'm sure, and a rough day at work, at the office, at the water cooler, I'm sure. But welcome back into the film room, brother.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here with you. I'm pumped for our guest. My soul still hurts. I'm not in a great way. Everybody on Bill's Twitter is a monster. People in real life are just everything that's going on. I feel like it's the Dark Knight when the Joker is talking to Harvey Dent after he's turned to Two-Face and he talks about like all these like good people. He's like, they'll eat each other. That's what's happening with Bills fans right now. And Bills like content creation. It's just a war zone out there, but at least we're able to get in, look at some things objectively. Again, a tremendous guest tonight. We got a really awesome show. It's unfortunate that it comes after a really brutal loss, but we got some good stuff on the docket for tonight.
Yeah, why don't you introduce our guests and we can get this started, man. We're gonna talk talk some things with our guest Mike Giardi from NFL Network, and then we're gonna get into the film, guys. So a film will be here in a little bit once we kind of shoot the breeze with Mike.
Yeah, so Mr. Mike Giardi from the NFL Network, who I pulled up your Twitter because your in your bio, it's one of my favorite Twitter bios, period, where you have the "we're going to hell, make sure you bring your sunblock." That's the only thing that's bringing me joy right now. But yeah, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time. We're really looking forward to your insight on this horrible, horrible game for the Bills.
Thank you guys for having me. And I feel for you. I know what a big night it was Monday night. I know the expectations for it. I know all that went into it. From a player's perspective, from a coach's perspective, how much they wanted that game. And yeah, I get it. I've seen some of the replies to you guys and some of the mentions, and it's ugly out there right now. Be careful.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the Bills fan base, they're phenomenal. They're great fans. They're passionate, just like us, doing this, on Tuesday nights, getting in the film room, and they're very knowledgeable. They're very passionate. So when their team loses, we have to kind of take a lot of their rants in, almost like priests do on Sundays at church. You have to take in their rants and their confessions and issues they believe that they have with the team. And today, after that big game on the big stage, was no different. So I want to get some of your thoughts on the game. Let's start with, obviously, the Patriots offense versus the Bills defense. Bills defense actually had been really good coming into this game. And even after this game, they still ranked really well when you look at some of the advanced metrics like Football Outsiders, DVOA against the run. But as you said earlier on social media, on Twitter, the Bills knew that the Patriots going to run the ball, especially going with the weather and just the way that the offense is constructed now with the young quarterback. So what did you see in this game from the Patriots offense, and especially up front, and just that mindset from the Patriots offense?
Well, I mean, I think they gave you tell pretty early on. Mike Onwenu became the sixth offensive lineman to be on the field, playing that tight end role, the third tight end role for the Patriots. And they 60% of the time, that's what they were in. They had Onwenu as the sixth offensive lineman. That's 2,000 pounds of beef essentially up front that they were going to throw at you. Yeah. That's just a straight announcement like, hey, look, this is how we're going to play. Mm-hmm. We're going to try to run on you. We saw what has happened to you, in some games where teams were declaring that. Tennessee obviously wants to run the football when they had Derrick Henry. Obviously, Indianapolis wants to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, and that was sort of the message. Like, hey, we're gonna test you. We're gonna come at you. Can you stop it? Are you strong enough, stout enough up front to stop it? And they had moments, clearly, to your point. Like, it wasn't. You get the narrative, whether you're looking at social media or whether you want to hear the national media, like, oh, Belichick's a genius. They just kept doing it. They had a lot of plays that didn't work, a ton of plays that didn't work, right? But yeah. I think establishing that physicality early was big for them. Getting out in front was huge for them, especially considering the weather elements, the environment that they were in. And then that sort of allowed them to play risk-adverse football for a better part of that. Well, not for a better part, for the entire part of that game, right?
Yeah.
So I just, like I said, I don't think it's as bad as some people are trying to make it out to be from the Bills front. But I think there are points where you look at it and go, you knew they were coming and you needed to make some plays early on in particular, and they didn't make enough early.
Yeah, and I will say, a run game plan like that, I've never seen anything like that, obviously, no. But a run game plan like that, yes, they had issues in some of the run fits, but you also have to realize, guys, that when you have a team like the Patriots that run those gap schemes, whether it's just one puller from the front side or a puller from the back side, that's moving gaps. That's subtracting a gap from the right side and moving one to the left. And that requires some post-snap processing. That requires linebackers and, defensive ends and everyone to fit up a different gap responsibility because they're moving gaps. So 46 rushes, you're not going to fit up every run perfectly, especially when you talk about run defense, right, Mike? It's a unit. It really is a unit. Everyone has to be on the same level. I kind of liken it to the offensive line when they're in 5-man pass protection and these teams are running stunts. You got to stay on the same level. You got to stay on the same wavelength. And the Bills just didn't fit up a few runs, and those runs went 10, 15, 60 yards down the field.
Erik, I love your point there about sort of the same way with run defense it is for the offensive line. One of the things that Dante Scarnecchia has said for a million years, he's the offensive line coach for the Patriots for 20 some odd years,
legend.
And really incredibly well respected. He used to say, 5 guys, 1 set of eyes. He wanted everybody to see with 1 set of eyes. And when you're talking about that sort of approach or a run game defensively, you have to see it all the same way. And there were, there were a couple plays that weren't that way that cost them big. And look, the other guys get paid too. That's the other thing. And we always get into, like, you're not going to stop every play. The number 1 corner is not going to shut down the number 1 receiver on every single snap. It just because that guy's good too. And some of that happened last night as well.
Mike, we talked a bit offline about the way the Patriots attacked the Bills, and you alluded to it already with seeing what the Colts did and what the Titans did. And so the Patriots had an idea of where the Bills defense potentially was weak, and they attacked it. Erik mentioning the gap runs and those power runs and just creating new gaps and moving the line of scrimmage and resetting over and over again. Obviously, the weather played a factor and a role in this game, but we just saw to such a dramatic degree with the only 3 passing attempts for Mac Jones versus the 46 runs. Obviously, that was heavily skewed because of the weather, but say this was a normal weather night, do you still think that would have been that very heavy run approach from the Pats? Is this something that, regardless of weather, they had pinpointed that weakness and were going to attack it in that way?
No, I think they would have been balanced. I think one of the things that I always look at, and I think all the good coordinators, all the good coaches do it, is right. You just sort of morph, whether you're morphing during the course of a game or during the course of a week, whatever your personnel is going to be. And I think the Patriots would have liked to have been balanced. I don't think Josh McDaniels had a blast calling 46 runs and just 3 passes. Josh likes to throw the ball, and he feels like he has the personnel to throw the ball. But in those conditions, I think it comes back to you take the early lead, and then it was like, now you're even dialing it back even more. Like maybe
not script.
Maybe there were a few more play action passes that would have been in there. And they're like, you know what? We continue to stay out in front. We're not going to put our quarterback in a position where maybe he turns the ball over and this place gets crazy, a pick 6, a fumble, whatever it may be. Like, let's just keep doing this. And as long as we can stay in front, then we don't really have to deviate from the plan very much. And that's clear. They stuck to it. They stuck to it even when it wasn't working, because that was the plan. That was, we're just gonna, in these conditions, we're not gonna put our rookie quarterback in that spot to turn the ball over and turn the tide.
Yeah, I thought it was telling, to a certain extent, how even on 3rd and longs, they're running inside runs, they're running traps, and again, they had success. But to me, that does speak a little bit about the rookie quarterback. I watched all of his film leading into this game. I was super impressed with this guy. I think the Patriots are in good hands when it comes to the quarterback position, which sucks for Bills fans. But I think he is everything that they want in a quarterback, and he runs like the rhythm of that offense. It looks very similar. I'm not going to say his name, but it looks very similar. It just feels and looks very similar when you look at the rhythm of that passing game, how he manages the game, even some of his skill sets, some of his strengths, his ability to throw under pressure, I thought was really good on film. He can make some awkward throws from weird platforms and still put it on the money. So I thought he looked really good coming in this game. And when I saw only 3 passes at the end of this, I said, you know what? I expected more, obviously, from McDaniels. As you said, very good play caller, knows how to manage different types of quarterbacks. We've seen that over the course of his career. We're talking Tebow and, obviously the Bradys of the world and now Mac Jones. I think it did say something. I don't think you can ignore the elephant in the room that they only called 3 passes. And even on some of those 3rd longs, handing it off. And I know the weather was a factor, and I know his arm strength is a factor. He's no Josh Allen, as you said today. But there's something, it's talking to me, it's speaking to me that they are kind of protecting him in the way. So should fans, Patriots fans and Bills fans for different reasons, should they be worried about Mac Jones playing in the elements later. I mean, this is a regular season game, a good test on a big stage against a strong defense. But should fans be worried about him playing in the elements going on? We saw a tweet as well, that he's never played in snow. I don't know if that's true or not, but we saw that floating around, right? Like,
you've never seen snow.
Yeah,
never seen snow. So, I mean, is that something that Patriots fans should be worried about?
Look, it's something that we were talking about going into the game prior against the Titans when it was clear the weather is starting to turn now, and like you don't have much experience in playing in sub 35, sub 40 degree weather with the elements. How are you going to deal with the wind? But I think when you look at last night's game, I mean, I can understand why you're looking at it and saying 3 passes like that's a reflection on the quarterback, and to a degree, I guess it is, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said before, I think there is they've managed him very well this year. They've given him more, but there have been times where it's like, all right, well, look, he's a little bit off rhythm. Let's just reel it back in a little bit. Let's settle him down, let him get confident again, and then we'll open it back up again. So, but I think I just look at this game and I say, how many quarterbacks in the league would have thrived in those conditions throwing the ball? Like Josh is one of 6 or 7 guys in the league that I think you said when you see the ball cut through the wind like that, you're like, it takes a special kind of arm to do that. He doesn't have that kind of arm. He has the accuracy and the intelligence. Those are the things that have elevated him in his rookie year, and I think they feel like it'll elevate him going forward. But the arm strength is, I've said it all year. It's like it's just good enough. Like he's not throwing darts all over the place, but sometimes in the short areas you see good velocity, and you're like, I think he'll get stronger in the offseason. I think that's going to be a big thing for him in the offseason is sort of change his body, much like the guy who did it for 20 years.
Yeah.
He changed his body over the first couple years of his career, and that arm that was just good enough became a lot better than that. I think that's the hope here. But I can't ding him too much for it because I just think when you're looking at those conditions and you're talking about 35, 40 mile an hour winds, like I just think they were content. And again, the situation played into it too, getting on top early, 8-0. And then even Buffalo scores, but kicks the extra point. It's 8-7. Like they were playing with that lead the entire time. And they've been so good at that. I think they were like, look, we don't need to do it yet. So we're not going to do it. And they never got to the point where they felt like they had to do it. So,
and on top of that, his strength is throwing to the middle of the field. Right. And when you have 8-9 guys in the box and you're showing these run looks, the middle of the field is going to be congested and you don't want him throwing out wide. So that's a fair assessment. And even some of our premium subscribers in the Slack channel said today, from a Bills perspective, it was a silly, weird game.
Really weird.
With the weather and the gusts and just the game plans. It was an odd game. And honestly, it felt like the first half was pretty quick and then it just kind of dragged on. For at least Bills fans, it seemed like it was like watching paint dry for half the game because of how everything was so stagnant for the Bills on both sides of the ball.
Well, think like December 26th when they play again, it's going to be an entirely different game in my opinion. Unless we have another freak weather occurrence where it's we've got 55 mile an hour gusts in there. I think you're going to see a whole different sort of approach from the Patriots from an offensive standpoint, and I think you'll see Josh Allen be able to throw the ball 35, 40 times if that's what they want to do, if that's how they feel that they should best attack the Patriots. So, I guess it was, some people think it was cool. I think it was unfortunate because I would have liked to have seen it sort of on a neutral ground because I think you're always trying to measure yourself.
Don't say that. We have Bills fans already calling for the dome. Like that's open up a can of worms, Mike. Don't come on here. They want a dome. They want a dome. They want that neutral field. They want Josh Allen throwing 40 times a game. That's a sore subject to bring up with the Bills fans, Mike.
No domes. Like I even want. Can we grass back there? If we had grass with mud, guys have been sliding all over the place.
Like, give me dirt on uniforms.
Like that never happens anymore, right? There's like 5 fields that have grass on them. I miss those days. I do.
Mike, we'll get you one more question here, and then send you on your merry way. With what the Pats have done recently, like this was, I feel like people weren't too high on Mac Jones. Some people were. All of a sudden, they're sitting here atop the AFC, playing very sound defense again. It looks like all those COVID opt-outs last year were a key significant piece, which I feel like a lot of people underestimated. But the offense is getting in rhythm. You talked about more being put on Mac Jones's plate. The offensive line is healthy and playing well. You've got 2 really good running backs in Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, decent enough weapons on the outside. What do you forecast for this Patriots team going forward? Again, they sit atop the AFC. They've beaten the Titans. They've beaten the Bills. What kind of noise do you think they can make in this AFC going forward?
I think they're poised for a deep run. I really do. But I think it's a matchup thing too. Like I look at across the league and well, the AFC in particular, and you say like people are starting to jump on Kansas City again. I still think Kansas City's offense is a little bit broken now. Their defense is playing light years ahead of where they were during the course of the year.
They just keep going up and down.
Yeah, so you're like, well, what kind of team are they? They're not the team that we're used to because they're not explosive offensively like they've been. But that defense has come around. You know, they're a team, and obviously you fear Mahomes. I don't know how you don't fear Mahomes based on his body of work thus far in his career. I look at Tennessee, like that Patriots win. You look at the scoreboard, you say 36-13. They hammered them. That was a game until the fourth quarter. And that was the game that Tennessee had nobody. You know, no Julio, no AJ, obviously still no Derek. They lost no Davis at right guard. They didn't have either one of their starting linebackers on the inside. Like there was a lot going on there, and they kept that game close. They muddied it up. And I look at them and I say, well, you keep hearing rumblings about Derek maybe coming back by the end of December, AJ coming back right around Christmas. Julio has been, he's ready to go now, or allegedly ready to go. We'll see.
Allegedly.
But like all of a sudden, if those guys are healthy, that's not a team I want to see. They're a tough team. They take after their coach. They're sort of built in that mold. Like that's a good team. So I think if you told me one of those three teams, if you told me, look, and we'll keep it, we'll bring it back to Buffalo here. And I said this leading up to the game, and I said it to my colleague Kim Jones today. People look at it and say, can you learn how to run the ball late in the year? Do they not have the right mix? Well, I'll go back to the Patriots. The last Super Bowl they won, 2018, 2019. They beat the Rams in the Super Bowl 13-3. They were a mess. Into December, mid-December, it was like, I don't think they're going to fix it. I think this team is they're washed out. It's not happening. The last two games of the season against, I believe it was the Bills and the Jets, neither very good in that season. They found their rhythm running the football. They made a concerted effort to run the ball 35 times in each one of those games. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, we found something. They got a little confidence. They got a little juice. They whatever it was in that 2-week period, they found their running game. And I think their running game was as much of a reason as them winning the Super Bowl that year as anything, because that sort of became what their identity was in January as well. Brady had a big second half against a big first half against the Chiefs and then a big overtime performance. But they were able to run the ball and sort of dictate terms. So I look at the Bills and say, there's talent up front.
Yeah.
The running backs, there's talent there. Can they find the switch? I don't, I know you guys have been waiting for it. You're hoping for it. It hasn't really happened consistently. But that's why I would never say like write them out, because I still think there's too much talent there to think that they can't fix the problems or that it hasn't been done. And at least in my recent memory, the Patriots were able to do it just a couple of years ago.
Well, we appreciate the glimmer of hope that you've allowed us to maintain in the dark days. Yeah, it's dark, stormy skies over here. So that silver lining, the glimmer of hope, is tremendously appreciated.
It's a piece of cake next week, right? You only got to go to Tampa.
Easy.
Problem.
They don't.
You should have left on a high note, Mike. Why are you doing this?
I was gonna say that, but no, he's right. Like they don't really have anybody on defense. I don't know who their quarterback is in Tampa, so it should be just smooth sailing and clear skies down in Tampa. But no, Mike, tremendously appreciative of you stopping by tonight. Your insight, your objectivity, your knowledge, and we know how busy and how important of a guy you are. So thank you so much for stopping by and adding all the insight you did. Yeah, thank you so much. And just in case,
I'm not that important of a guy, but thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. It was good talk. I enjoy listening to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We'll have you back soon, Mike. You take care, brother.
Sounds good.
That was awesome.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man.
My heart still hurts, but he was awesome.
Yeah, he had me at the end there. He was like, filling my heart up a little bit, kind of blowing up the ego.
I was like, we can fix the run. Tell me more about how we can fix the run.
Tell me more. Let me go back to the film and look, and I'll send some clips over. Let's look at this. Let's try to get this back on track. No, he's a good guy, obviously very knowledgeable, and I do know that Bills fans give him a lot of shit for the Josh Allen takes. And I mean, they give that to everybody. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I get tweets from time to time of me criticizing a play from Josh Allen.
No.
Yes.
That would
believe
never
it or not.
happen.
Believe it or not. So,
no way.
Talking about the offense, Anthony, let's get to that side of the ball and become a little more broken.
I don't want to.
Yeah, it's okay. Let's start with the red zone. And
Oof.
I want to bring up a clip from the Bills head coach, Sean McDermott, and how he was discussing the Bills defense and, their inability to stop their run. But more importantly, what happened on the offensive side of the ball and their red zone woes in this game and going 1 for 4. So I'm going to bring up this clip. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear it.
Yeah, let's not give more credit than we need to give credit to Bill Belichick in this one. It was, whether it's Bill or anybody else, they beat us, right? But you sit here and you tell me when we start with the average starting field position of the 40-yard line and he starts with the 23-yard line, and I'm rounding up in both cases, and we were 1 for 4 in the red zone and they were 0 for 1 in the red zone. You give me that ahead of time, I'm saying I like my chances. I don't think, with all due respect, it's not a Bill Belichick type thing. It's what are you doing with the opportunities you got?
He was pissed. He
was
angry.
A little bit. Very
poignant that was a message sent to the offense, and I totally agree. Like I think that in this game especially, they had many opportunities to get in the end zone there, and they just have struggled to do so. And I want you to talk about the red zone issues this year, how they rank, what they look like, and really compared to last year, because up until this game, they were eerily similar. But after I just took a quick peek at the stats now, they are starting to separate a little more and become worse.
It's interesting. You mentioned it. They're close to last year, even with what happened in this most recent game. So in 2020, a year where the Bills kind of set the world on fire from an offensive standpoint, they finished the year 12th in terms of red zone touchdown percentage at roughly 61%. The Packers were first at 76.8. Packers had a crazy year in the red zone, but they were first. Bills finished 12th. Again, 61%. This year, right now, 2021, they're at 58.8%, which puts them at 18th. The last 3 games has been really rough on them. They're 50% red zone touchdown percentage, 25% obviously last night, going 1 out of 4. And they've just been inefficient from a touchdown perspective in the red zone. And what's very interesting, I know you've made note of this earlier, and we've talked about it. There you go, right there. That team ranking site, fantastic. The usage of the RPOs in the red zone has been something that I thought was tremendous. You first tracked it maybe like 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, and then I followed up and dug a little bit with that as well when we were taking a peek at some red zone stuff. So in 2021, this current year, the Bills have run 31 RPOs in the red zone, which is a 22% usage rate. That's the 4th most in the NFL. So we're not finished with the year, right? Bills are 7-5, 12 games in, 31 snaps for RPOs in the red zone. All of last year combined, 14 snaps in the red zone, 8% usage rate, good enough for 19th. Yeah, there you go. In that tendency page on ISS, they haven't updated last night's game into the tendency page.
Right.
I've done my due diligence.
So here's the RPOs red zone in 2020. You see that right there. You said 8% usage there, and you can see a lot of the times it was for the pass, right, guys? In the red zone, it was for the pass. But let's fast forward to this season and see what they're looking like now. So RPOs, they're 4th, 22%, and now they are passing only 39% of the time, and running 61% of the time, which is ranked 24th. So what that tells us is pretty straightforward. They are running RPOs, but they're being what? They're being coaxed into running the ball.
They're being dictated to instead of being the dictators.
Yeah. So, and again, you see that every week. And, I saw an awesome tweet from my guy, Bryce, at SIS today. I'm going to bring it up, but he mentioned how basically RPOs and screens, if they're considered part of the run game, which they are by most accounts, that maybe this isn't such a passing league anymore, because that really screens, RPOs are really extensions of the run game. It's an interesting thought.
It's a very interesting thought. And it's, teams have, as the NFL has become more of a passing league over the last several years, teams have tried to find those extensions of the run game while still trying to be more efficient and trying to gain more EPA per play and match all those analytics and all that stuff. And so that's why you see more RPOs and screens and trying to use those extensions of the run game. And it's something that we wanted the Bills to do a little more in order to supplement the struggles in the run game, because the Bills are not succeeding in your regular zone runs or gap runs and powers or whatever, you want to go with. So they need to do something else to try and supplement what they're missing in their regular offense. And it can be effective for teams. I mean, we saw this is dialing it way back, but those Andy Reid Philadelphia Eagles teams that weren't great at running the ball, but man, could they dial up screens to Brian Westbrook and Corral Buckhalter, and they were just so deadly. And that's also a good way to slow down a pass rush when you're running screens and that. And, a run game helps, but also if you can do anything to make defenders second guess themselves a little bit and, maybe I shouldn't get too far upfield, or maybe I need to look out for the crack or a pulling guard, something like that. Anything to keep defenders off balance. And it's something that would be nice to see in that Bills offense. But yeah, that RPO is very interesting considering we're seeing more of it this year. And again, that dictated two piece, Erik, I think, why don't you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I feel like just in case people don't know, like when you run an RPO, how can the defense dictate to you what you're going to do?
And we're going to see a couple of these plays. So there are different RPOs. Sometimes it's a box read, like, hey, there's only 6 guys in the box. I have 6 guys to block it up. And hey, let's run the ball. Okay, maybe sometimes it's a leverage read. I have 3 wide receivers out there. There's only 2 guys covering them. Well, guess what? I'm throwing it out there on a screen, on a tunnel screen. There are different ways, different RPOs that, can be run. And, based on how a defense lines up, based on how many guys they show in the box, based on safety alignments or slot corner alignments, they can really push you into just handing the ball off. Of course, defenses want to defend the Bills deep. They're seeing a lot of those 2 high shells. And so even when they get in the red zone, they're showing those 2 high shells. They're showing 6-man boxes, and the Bills are like, all right, I'm just going to run it right up the middle, hand it off. Sometimes it's a zone read type where they're just going to leave the backside defender, read him, so they pick up an extra run blocker in the fit. Sometimes it's just, we're just going to run inside zone and run it that way. And the Bills are just doing so much of that, and the defenses are really coasting him into that. And I want them, and I said this a month ago when I brought this up, like, I just want them to call a pass. I just want them to call a run.
Yep.
Take it out of
straightforward.
Keep it in Josh Allen's hands. That's what this comes down to. And I understand logically that RPOs do that to an extent, but there are ways that defenses can get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. And we don't want that. If there's an identity on this offense, it's Josh Allen.
I was going to say that's the identity.
That's Josh Allen. So they need to just call some more passes. You're going to see some of these plays. You're like, why are they doing that? Some of them work. Some of them they don't. And again, I understand the logic behind doing it, but they need to just keep the ball in Josh Allen's hands and let him run this offense the way that he can, because it feels different than it did last year, right? Like, it doesn't feel, especially in the red zone, we're talking about the red zone, like it felt like last year it was so easy for the Bills to get touchdowns in the red zone. Yeah,
that you hit it on the head. And I feel like that's been symptomatic or in terms of relation of the Bills offense as a whole this year, even though they moved the ball relatively well between the 20s, it just seems hard. Even when they're succeeding, it just seems like windows are tighter. Routes are covered better. Josh has less time. Whether he's not on, perfect target or timing or whatever, just the simplest completion seems difficult. It seems like they're not getting these easy gimmies and taking advantage of things. Everything seems harder, and which is rough in the red zone, because the red zone is already harder considering it's a condensed area and a smaller area of the field to succeed. And when you're playing with 2 high coverages and zone coverage in the red zone, you have less ground to cover. You can squeeze windows even further, and that's contributed to the struggles in the red zone as well.
Yeah, and so we're going to take a look at some plays from this game. Again, 1 for 4 in the red zone. We're going to start with the positive, right? The Gabriel Davis touchdown, a guy that we've been saying for weeks.
Yes.
Give him playing time. So on this play, you're going to see the Bills in a 2-by-2 set. They're going to bring in Gabriel Davis to the formation. And this is, an RPO. It's one that they ran against the Titans to Diggs for a touchdown. The Bills ran this against the Patriots last year to Diggs on a slant where he broke a tackle inside the red zone for a touchdown. This is something they run a lot. And they throw a little niche, a little different play in this for Josh Allen, a different technique, because normally you don't want your quarterback turning this way. So
Yes.
he's taking the snap, the running back's to his left, and he's taking the snap and he's executing the mesh to his left when he's going to be throwing right. So he has the left guard pulling Ike Bacher on a power type run, and he's creating that mesh with the running back and then having to flip his hips right there. You see him flip his hips and then throw it through traffic. And it was just a perfect play call from the perspective of the Bills, because if before, like, the broadcast footage, you can't see it here, but the entire defense was calling out power run. Like, you had the linebacker Bentley saying, "Hey, Booker, he's going to be pulling." Knox is on the line of scrimmage. They thought they had it covered, but that's what's good about these RPOs, especially ones that kind of read safety leverage, whether it's one or two high or a true RPO, third level RPO, where a safety is being conflicted. A guy like Phillips down here in the box, he's coming downhill thinking it's run. All of his keys tell him run, and then you open up a passing lane behind him and a really good throw and maybe even better catch, and being able to hold on to it through contact from Gabriel Davis.
I love the play design. You talked about it right off that mesh point. The second level defenders are all almost beat right away at that mesh point. They've all committed forward. You're highlighting them right there. Gabriel Davis is going to have so much space to get in behind. And this was an interesting thing coming into this game. The Patriots have played a lot, predominantly, of single high coverages, and they played a decent amount of man coverage. And the Bills were a good team against single high looks. That's the reason they went with heavier personnel in those formations against the Jets, to try and force them into those single high looks. And when you bring a safety down like that, you run single high, you're vulnerable to the play action pass. You're vulnerable with crossers and things over the middle. And when you can get behind those second level defenders, this was a great play design for the Bills. And this was a really encouraging point. This is the first play after that turnover. They run a smart, savvy call. They completely fool the Patriots defenders. There's so much room for Gabriel Davis to get in there. He keeps his route skinny. He doesn't drift too much and allow Devin McCourty to make a play over the top. He stays inside of Jalen Mills. Great throw from Allen. This was a nice, encouraging point for the offense, because it worked from an execution standpoint, but from a play call standpoint and an anticipation standpoint, like you mentioned, it was even better. They were making the Pats think A, and they gave them something that looked just like A, much like they did against the Saints last week, caught them off guard and made a big play out of it.
Yeah, and so here's another play in the red zone. Third quarter, 1st and 10. The ball's on the 20, 7:33 on the clock. Bills are in shotgun, and they have a trips bunch set to the top of the screen, to the left of the left side of the field, and they have tight end Dawson Knox in line to the bottom of the screen. So it's a nub tight end set, but it's a 4 strong look. So that means the running back is set to the passing strength. He's set to the trip side. So they have 4 eligibles to the top of the screen here, and it's another RPO, but it's more of a leverage read. To the top of the screen, you see Bills have the trips bunch. They have 3 guys up there. Patriots are matching with 3 defenders, but that third defender is kind of splitting the difference. He's like the apex player between the innermost receiver, Cole Beasley, and then the left tackle, Deion Dawkins. And Dawkins is looking out there just in case that guy does rush. But this is more of a leverage read from Josh Allen. But you'll see post-snap, what happens is he just hands the ball off. I mean, he just hands it to Dawson Knox, and I'm sorry, Dawson Knox hands it off to Zach Moss, and right up the middle, and it's just a 3-yard gain. It's not a pretty play, to be honest. And I'm gonna show you from the end zone angle. And this is what worries me. Okay, so right now, if you're looking at the box, the Bills are pretty much seeing like a 6-man box, maybe 6.5 with the corner over here on the left side. So the Bills have a light box, and they have a really big bubble right here that they want to run to with this inside zone type look. But as I let it roll here, I want you to watch what happens up the middle. Here's a high snap, first of all, but watch what this defensive end does. He was out here on Dawkins. He comes in on Booker, and I want you to watch Booker's technique. Again, you got to remember, this is an RPO, so there's a run pass element. There's both elements of a run and blocking, run and pass blocking here by the offensive line. So they don't quite know if this is going to be a run or a pass, which is kind of an issue. And it's been creeping up with the Bills, with the Chiefs. And so you see the pad level of Booker is super high. He hops into this run fit against this defensive end, Dietrich Weiss,
Mhm.
and then you see Weiss get inside leverage right there, eyes inside, and here comes again. This guy was on the fringe of the box. Now he can come into the run fit because Dawkins is out here. If they throw that screen, guess what? Dawkins has got to kind of get out there, right, and help them out. Well, the lane closes because of, well, Bentley has leverage.
Yep.
Godshall has tremendous leverage. And then Weiss. And then again, you have everyone pinned in. What is Zach Moss supposed to do?
Yep.
All he can do is really get up in the hole and get 3 or 4 yards of what he can.
Mhm.
Like, he's not that kind of guy that can rely on his athleticism to do anything but that, right? So it's hard to watch sometimes because you see these holes open and close so quickly, especially because the Bills' offensive line aren't the most physical guys. And Mitch Morse struggled in this game, but he's always struggled against Godshall when he was with the Dolphins. And so this was a first down call on the 20-yard line, and they're taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands.
Yeah, and you hit it. And for the audio only listeners here, there's just pre-snap a mound of space in front of Ike Bottker. He's uncovered. It just looks like a perfect hole to run through. And yeah,
It's inviting.
It's super inviting. Like, if I'm Zach Moss, I'm like, oh sweet, I'm about to hit that hole and I'm gonna get some yards. And it just closes in an instant. The Patriots just maintain gap integrity from a look that doesn't look like they should be able to maintain gap integrity. And what's also very telling on this one, if you could go back to the sideline angle still, if you could, on this one.
Yep.
There, when Dietrich Weiss just like a couple frames ahead, when Weiss and Godshall make contact. So Weiss crashes down. There you go, right there. Perfect. He makes contact on Bottker. Godshall makes contact on Morse. Look at Weiss is in perfect position right there. Look how he's extended. Yep. His head is in the hole. His eyes are in the backfield. Godshall is in similar position. He's extended on Morse. They are both able to shed their blockers almost at a moment's notice. And wherever Zach Moss is going to go, they can shed and they'll follow him into that hole. And then Erik, you just highlighted the other defenders that are there. Yeah. They're already clued into the backfield. Their eyes are on Zach Moss. They pursue, they take proper angles. And you have a play that, again, initially is super inviting pre-snap. They have it, and all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, I should hand the ball off here. Here's the run. Here's the read. Let me take advantage of this with Zach Moss. They got 2 safeties back deep.
Yep.
Light box, run it, fantastic. No, we get a gain of 3, and you're sitting there at 2nd and 7, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but keep the ball in your playmakers' hands, make things easier on an offensive line that, again, we've established at this point, they're middling. So why make them have to do 2 things at once? Let's just keep it simple. Either run it, pass it, try and break things down a little more in order to maintain some positivity. And this next play here, 4th quarter, 1st and goal from the Patriots 6-yard line, 9 minutes and 4 seconds left in the 4th. We got a shotgun snap here to Zach Moss, and he's going to go to the right guard for no gain. Godshall makes another play again. Yeah. And what really gets me with this one, this is another one too. Godshall stays extended again on Mitch Morse, makes a play. Allen fakes that read, right? We have a light box. Again, another, what have we said all year with these light boxes? Inviting run. You see the 6-man box opportunity. And Erik, you've done a great job here on the video highlighting the no combination ?
Okay, see, and the reason I say that, Anthony, because based on this, the way the run unfolds, how it unfolds here, I am not sure what Darrell Williams is doing.
I don't know what he, like, you would think double team, climb to the second level.
You're getting a double team here. Why aren't you getting a double team here? This is usually, an inside zone track where he bends it back this way. It's like a mid zone run. It's what Kaepernick used to run at Nevada all the time.
Nice. Yeah.
With,
out of that pistol look all the time.
Yeah, out of that pistol look. And so it's a midline type run. It's a zone run. Why isn't there a combination here? Instead, you see Darrell Williams just gets on his horse to go, and he does a great job. Don't get me wrong.
He screams to the second level.
Yeah, and he lights up Bentley. But let me back it up a little bit. So you saw it was another RPO. It's a read. You see Van Noy right here widen with Knox as he. I mean, this is essentially, guys, the same play that Dawson Knox scored on against the Chiefs. It was a Sanders, I'm sorry, to the back corner of the end zone.
Mm.
Same exact play, slightly different routes by Sanders and the receiver to the left side of the screen. But you see, instead of the DN crashing down and having Josh pull it, well, guess what? What do? They go with the flow. They go with Knox. And then you see.
And what does that make Josh Allen do?
Hand it off.
Exactly. Takes the ball right out of his hands.
Yep.
And I keep going back on this end zone angle that you showed. And with the block that Darrell Williams makes, and again, this is slow motion, so it's easy to see. I wish Moss would have cut right off that left hip of Morse and kept it straight up, because that's where the alley is. And instead, he bounces it between Morse and Spencer Brown.
Yeah.
And then you've got Judon setting the edge really well against Spencer Brown. Then you've got a second-level defender peeling in.
It's inviting, right? Again,
super inviting.
Super inviting. 6-man box. Run this way.
Yes.
Here comes that seventh defender into the box. And I know it takes it away. And this is that play that everyone on social media was talking about. Hey, we should have had Moss, bounce it out wide. I don't think that yields much. You see hand control and leverage by Judon. Again, you see this guy coming into this gap here. I just don't think Moss is that guy, and I think he knows that. He doesn't want to bounce this out here, and I don't think he's going to do anything with it. I mean, it's debatable, but I think he made the right choice. What I would have liked to see him do is, like you said, Anthony, press the line of scrimmage. Gacho initially peeked this way, then he peeks this way and disengages to make the tackle on Moss. Press that line of scrimmage. Press it here, and then just slide right up in there for a touchdown. It's probably a touchdown. He would only have to beat Gacho, and if he sets up his block, which the running backs this year have struggled to do that, regardless of scheme, they have struggled to set up blocks on their own. And so this doesn't surprise me, but I would have liked to see him just get north and south here, even though, again, it is probably designed to cut back into here, but I want to see you set it up, press it that way, because that's where they want you to go. They're funneling you to that gap. Get inside and put your helmet down, put your pads down, and get a touchdown.
And this still that you have right here is just no, you're fine. It's Darrell Williams washes Bentley like it's there. McCourty happens to be caught flat-footed as he's starting to back up. Moss can't see that, but if Moss hits that hole, there's a good chance he's definitely getting more yards than what he gets on this play, but there's a decent chance he gets into the end zone, because that corner that's coming off from the right side, at most he's going to be able to hit him on an angle. Moss can just keep getting north and south and going forward. But it's again, this whole world of taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. He makes the right read. He sees what Van Noy is doing. He sees the flow of the defense going with that action and with what Knox is doing. And he knows what he has in terms of alignment pre-snap. So he sees a light box. He sees the defense flow with the read. I'm going to hand this ball off. And they just don't take advantage of it. Whether Darrell Williams was supposed to work on that double team and then climb to the second level. I thought it was super weird. Because again,
over there.
and for people in the audio, again, you've got Ike Butker and Deion Dawkins working a double team on the left side of the line. And then you've got Morse and Williams at right guard, but Gacho was lined up right in that A gap. He's right between, he's on Darrell Williams' inside shoulder. This majority of the time, I don't want to say always, but majority of the time screams Darrell Williams and Morse should double team Gacho. They'll work their way up to the second level, and then whoever's able to peel off first and get that second level block will peel off. In this case, based on how the Patriots attacked, it would have most likely been Darrell Williams, but he doesn't work that double team whatsoever. He kind of takes a step there, but then just gets right up to Bentley, which again, still kind of works because he washes Bentley out. But whether it's, Moss not being able to get outside or just, playing the safe route and knowing what he can do and trying to get vertical, or whether it's just the Patriots, playing good team defense and playing sound with their gap integrity, they make a play and we get a very minimal gain.
Yeah, and this is another one of those plays that I think Brian Daboll has struggled or did struggle in this game. Let's isolate this game. I think he's had good moments. I think this play reminds me of something he did when the Bills had Lee Smith and they got into that low red zone inside the 10, inside the 5-yard line. They would bring Frank Gore and Lee Smith in and say, guess what? We're running the ball. And then they would run a leak concept to Lee Smith for a touchdown. I think he's
Tricky.
trying to do that same thing here. And the Bills did it against the Patriots last year. And they leaked that tight end out. I think it was Lee Smith, right? Was that Lee Smith
Yes.
last year? Yeah, they leaked him out for a touchdown against the Patriots. So I think they're doing a similar thing here. 12 personnel, 2x2 set. You see Knox in a 2-point and Diggs to his left to the bottom of the screen. Knox is running that over route. Diggs is running the in-breaking route into the end zone. In the fourth quarter here, a 2nd and 6 situation. Again, this is a critical drive, right? The ball's on the 6-yard line.
I believe this is the play right after the play we just showed.
Yes,
this
it
is that same drive. It's right
same
after.
drive. Yep. It's the second to last drive, I believe, of the game.
Yep. Correct.
So this is the 9-yard sack by Judon. So I think he's got the personality. He's doing some different things, trying to make them think, hey, they're going to run the ball. They got Kumaro to the top of the screen. They're going to run the ball. That's usually what, screams run. They did it last year where they bring Robertson and they just run the ball. He'd run block. But they're running the pretty much the same exact route they ran with Diggs last week on that isolation route against Lattimore. And so it's a similar route that
Kumaro
Diggs
doesn't
ran.
run it as good.
No, it's slightly different. It's more of a return pivot route, not that ridiculous Diggs route that he did. It's slightly different.
Yeah.
Cole Beasley ran this route against the Washington football team.
Oh, that was gorgeous last year.
Last year, right? So same play. It's easy bang bang read. Usually Kumaro to Dawson Knox to Diggs. Really quick reads. Josh is really good at this, but you have Kumaro running that route, and he doesn't really create separation on this play. And Josh is running the play action there and gets to the top of the drop, and here's that slow developing route from Kumaro, and then you see a pause it like, okay, where's the separation? There isn't any. Even with the ball on the right hash to the short side of the field, this is a risky throw. Okay, so then Josh is probably looking at Dawson Knox, right? Well, guess what? McCourty's in trail. He's got a little separation from him, but then you got Miles Bryant in the underneath area, and then you'll see from the end zone angle, there'll be another defender there. And so Josh basically has nowhere to go with the ball. And what he tries doing is, coming back to the bottom and trying to escape out here, right? He tries escaping right here and gets tripped up, and it's a 9-yard loss. And this is what McDermott's talking about. Like, you get the ball in that 6-yard line, and then you end up going backwards. Like, yes, we can criticize Brian Daboll all you want about the red zone, especially in this game. Like, I didn't like some of the calls, especially like this one. You're using that personnel. Like, it's a big game, second to last drive of the game. Like, just put your horses in and let them work. Like, don't get pretty. Like, ride your horses. And so, like, I understood the logic behind it, but this really kills them. They take a sack here, and the drive ends up stalling, and they're missing the field goal on this drive. And same with the next drive, right? We're going to talk about that. Just a simple, false start by Dawson Knox
kills you.
They go backwards. So, talk about your thoughts on this play, man, with this personnel grouping and just what's Josh doing here?
So I want to start with the personnel grouping. So they're sitting there in 12 personnel, and the personnel usage in the red zone has been very interesting this year. So in 2021, they've been in 11 in the red zone, 11 personnel, 65% of the time, 21 personnel, 12% of the time, and then 10 personnel, 7%. Those have been their highest usage rates in the red zone this year. Last year, their 2 highest usage rates, 11 personnel, 71% of the time, and 10 personnel, 11% of the time. So spreading offenses out more, you go to SIS just like I do. They were spreading them out. They were attacking that way. They're also seeing more man coverage, but the Bills are seeing more zone coverage in the red zone this year. And so between that and the personnel alignment, this is my biggest takeaway initially, right? So Zach Moss eventually leaks out, right? And he has a little chip block. He leaks out a little bit. But before he does that, this is a 3-man route without Zach Moss. And there are 6 defenders in coverage, almost 7, because of the way Dante Hightower on that right end, he makes contact with Spencer Brown, but then he's kind of just chilling there. Yep, Erik, you marked him right there. He rushes, and I don't know if he's playing the contain aspect against Josh Allen, or if he's kind of just hovering and realizes, okay, I can't get there on the rush. Let me drop in coverage and make life a little harder for Josh Allen. But it goes into this theme of what teams are doing in the red zone against the Bills, which is playing that zone coverage. And it's not great odds. And you have a 3-man route against 6 defenders in a condensed part of the field. It's easier to squeeze the windows. And the only window that's there, you've got it freeze framed right there. And Allen just doesn't see it because he's looking to that Kumaro route on the right. Allen has the opportunity to fit this in to Dawson Knox. Bentley is not yet there. Bryant is reading Josh Allen's eyes to start, so he floats a little to that right. Josh has a split-second instant of being able to hit Dawson Knox, and Knox is ready. He's showing his numbers. He's given that surface area. He's ready for it. Allen just can't get it, and then we start to see what we've seen really since the Jaguars game. Allen starts to get jittery in the pocket a little bit, feels like he has to scramble, and Tommy Sweeney gets thrown into him basically from the rush by Judon, which I don't even want to, go too hard on Sweeney for that. Like, Judon is a premier pass rusher, and you got a one-on-one opportunity with a premier edge rusher against a tight end. Like,
and it should be quick. Like,
yes.
It's only three read progression.
Yes.
Like, you should be getting rid of it. Like,
the ball
Josh
should be out.
Yeah, and this is Josh Allen. Like, I am okay with him trying to think he can bounce it here. But yeah, I mean, the ball probably should have been out on this. Like, you just can't take a sack. Like, try to escape, fine, but you have to get rid of it at a certain point. And just these are killers, man. Like, you're going backwards. Yeah, he's pressing in this moment. But I will say, like, I know I'll probably take some heat for it, but I liked the decision to kick the field goal there. I think that Bass just didn't adjust enough. If you go back and watch that kick with the ball in the right hash, he did not push it to the left field goal post enough. He basically aimed for right down the middle, and then, of course, the wind pushed it. So I think he can make that kick. I think he's got the leg for that. I don't think he adjusted the English from left to right enough to make that kick. Because, again, McDermott even said it in his presser today that was kind of his mindset, like, kick a field goal there, and they went back down there. They had another opportunity. I don't know if he would have made the next one from 36 yards. The first one was 33. Yeah. But I like the decision, knowing that his defense had been locking down for most of that, late in the game there, and getting the ball back pretty quickly. So I did like the decision. I know I'm in the minority there, but I did like the decision. And I can at least see the reasoning behind it. And you probably analyze the percentages of, hey, a 4th and 15 call, there's no play in your playbook to convert 4th and 15 versus a 33-yard field goal with some wind. I drafted a big leg kicker. I get why they did it. I mean, I won't argue against, if they had gone for it, but I do understand why McDermott chose to go in that direction.
Oh, I second that notion. I think this is another one of those, like, in hindsight, you're like, oh, I can't believe they didn't do A and they should have did B, whatever you want to go with there. But yeah, I mean, I get why you go for the kick, because if you make it, it's a 1-point game. You kick the ball off again. You think your defense can stop them, and then all you need is a field goal in order to take the lead and win. I can also see it on the flip side where, well, we'll go for it because even if we don't get it, our defense can stop them and we'll get the ball back, and then we can try and score a touchdown on maybe an even shorter field again. But the percentages and analytics and EPA per play, it all adds another wrinkle and layer. And we know the Bills are into analytics, and, but this is where it comes to using that information at the proper times. And it seems like the Bills, for whatever reason, have just been snake bit this year when it comes to the decision on when they kick a field goal versus when they go for it, what plays they use when they go for it, what they're executing at, and how high of a rate and a clip. It just seems it goes into that theme, Erik, that you mentioned earlier and that we talked about, where everything offensively just seems hard. It just seems difficult for whatever reason in a variety of forms and fashions. Also, I pulled up the comment here from John, which was awesome in and of itself. And, thank you for the donation, John. You're one of the biggest supporters we have, and you're fantastic. So thank you, man.
Thanks, John. We appreciate it, brother. He says, what bothers me at the Pats and Indy going for 222 and then obviously 264 for Indy. No run threat at quarterback. Pats played 9 blockers versus 11. He's right. And won all night. He's right. I will push back on the notion that the Bills didn't adjust. As we talked about with Mike, the Bills did a decent job on most plays. Again, 46 run fits. That's absurd. That is a crazy amount of processing. Hey, everyone be disciplined. All 11 with their gap integrity. That's very difficult to do.
Like you mentioned, on runs that are designed to change gaps and try and out gap the defense, that's hard to constantly be replacing gaps and flowing, all having to be on that communication piece. The comment there that Mike had from Scarnecchia for the offensive line, which is 5 guys, 1 set of eyes. I love the way he phrased that. That's the same thing on defense. You have to have all 11 guys with the same set of eyes when you're going against a team that's going heavy power runs, trying to change gaps on you. You have to be playing all with the same mindset. That's hard to do 46 times.
Yeah, it is. And, talk about snake bit. All right. This has happened
Ugh.
several times this year, man.
I've
Like,
had it. Just stop
the-
trying to be cute. I'm done with it.
the Bills, and they were so good at it last year. Like, they were one of the best teams. Teams were studying them and how they did it. Now they can't even buy a bucket, right? So again, it's third and 15. It's third and long, and Josh Allen and Mitch Morse think they get a free play here. And I don't know. I diagrammed the play here: 2x2 set, ball in the right hash. Knox is, detached from the line of scrimmage. He's in the slot to the top of the screen. He's the main target here. Patriots show a single high look. I don't know if there's an adjustment when, oh, look, we think we have a free play. We're just going to run all verticals, or if that was the play call. So I can't say one or the other, because, there are teams that will say, you know what, hey, if you think they jumped off sides and we're, a quick snapping it like this, run all verticals. We're just going to go deep, like Pacino tells Willie Beeman, right? Just go deep, right? So yeah.
A nice Any Given Sunday reference.
Yeah. So, Josh thinks that he has a free play here. He throws the seam route to Dawson Knox, and it goes incomplete. I mean, this has happened several times this year, man. And it's just disappointing because, now it's like, okay, it's on the 4th and 15. And again, you come to that decision. Do I kick the field goal or go for a 4th and 15?
Yeah, they just keep snake bit is the perfect word. Like, they keep getting in these scenarios where it feels like, okay, like free play and even just like not that this is simple, trying to get the defense to jump off sides and then take advantage of it. But yeah, just another example where the simplest thing or the easiest thing from the naked eye, it's just not easy for the Bills offense right now.
Yeah. And so this, I believe, is the next this is the next drive. It's a third down call. So we're on the last drive of the game. 2x2 set. You have Knox again detached from the line of scrimmage. He's on the line of scrimmage, but he's detached a few yards to the top of the screen. 2x2 set. And again, Brian Daboll had a rough game because, to me, I like the logic behind what he's doing here. So to the bottom of the screen, Sanders, Beasley in the slot, and they run essentially what comes out to like a smash concept. You have Sanders getting up the numbers, running a deep out. Beasley runs a slow developing, basically pivot route to the boundary as well. So a little high-low, which Josh probably would look to if it's a too high look, right? Which they are kind of showing. To the top of the screen, they basically have what looks to me like a curl wheel route. Knox wheeling up the sideline. They switch release. Knox gets up the sideline. Diggs comes over the middle. And I'd like to say that this route was built in from Diggs, but I can't 100% say that just because of, how they paired these two routes. I'll get to it right here. So right there, you see the safety drop down from that too high look, and he basically looks like he's robbing the middle of the field, right? So Jackson was in off coverage on Diggs, and you have that switch release. So Diggs is coming under the release of Knox up the sideline. So you're thinking like, okay, if this is man coverage, throw it to Diggs, right? Well, you have that safety dropping down from the too high look to the bottom, to the middle of the fields between the numbers and the hash. But I don't think he's actually supposed to be there. I don't think he's playing a rat defender. I actually think he's watching Devin Singletary out of the backfield. That's my
I was thinking the same
that.
thing if he was in man coverage on him coming down.
Yes.
Yeah. This is
and you'll see it from the end zone angle once we get to it. So it's quick though. Josh, he looks to the top of the screen really quick, and he sees Jackson over the top. He sees this guy probably coming down again. To him, maybe it looks like a rat defender, and he's like, okay, well, they're bracketing Diggs on a high-low. Like, it's third and long. Like, that's not going to do it. But then, of course, as they point out in the broadcast, you see Diggs blow by that guy, that middle defender. That's what makes me think that this wasn't necessarily a rat defender. This was a guy that was just watching the running back. But why am I going to scream down here the flats to cover Singletary in the flats? If you want to throw it to him, by all means, we'll rally and tackle. So I can't blame Josh for wanting to move on from this, because to him, it probably looked like they had a bracket coverage. But I don't like Josh turning his back to the pass rush. And yes, he breaks some tackles and whatnot and does a great thing and tries getting it down the field to Knox outside of script, but it goes incomplete, Anthony. It just, man, it's like pulling teeth sometimes with this offense in the red zone, especially against complex coverage teams like the Patriots.
Yeah, and guys who are making smart reads there. If the safety is there in man coverage on Singletary, that's a really smart heady play for him to be like,
They do that all the time.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're what and like surprised, they're well coached over there in New England.
Yeah.
This one's really frustrated with, if when you have it there on that clip where Allen is, turning his back, Godchow is driving Morse, or no, I think it's Dietrich Wise is driving Morse back. And it looks like he's going to get beat, but then Morse actually recovers.
He recovers. Yep.
Yes, he's able to lock out. He's able to get that bend. He's able to extend. If Allen just stays in there a little bit, he has the chance to see Diggs clearing Duron Harmon there, right there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so close. Like if Allen can just hang in there for a little bit longer, he can see it, but he gets jittery. He bails early. And again, at this point, it's understandable with, what we've seen from the Bills offensive line this year. But, maybe you can make the case that Hightower is going to blow by Darrell Williams and maybe he meets Allen at the point. But Allen could have stepped up. Diggs clears in the middle. It's so wide open. But also, if we're adding in that layer, like you mentioned initially, maybe this was an adjustment from Diggs. Maybe this route wasn't built into the play concept and design. This is Diggs just reading what's going on in front of him and adjusting and going to green grass. Either way, it's what we continue to see where the Bills are just off. It's like pulling teeth, exactly like you said. They're so close here, but one person doesn't execute or the wrong thing goes wrong at the exact right time for the opponent, and it doesn't work out for the Bills. And that's also one, Josh still tries to make a play. I would have liked to see Dawson Knox. He's big and athletic. Yep, come back to the ball. The defender, use your body. The defender, and I know people were throwing it up there too, saying like this is pass interference. Dawson Knox, I felt like could have worked harder to draw that flag. Either work through and make the catch or work harder and draw the flag because the defender's back was turned. But, live and learn, and you go from there.
Thanks for the donation there, Carl. He says, where are the runs to the outside? Besides one from Josh and one from Devin, they ran straight ahead all night into a brick wall as the O-line can't open gaps. I'll add that the Breida had a counter bash handoff as well up to the top of the screen. Speed. They need speed to get outside. Devin Singletary had a nice little cut as you saw, Phillips coming from the too high look. He was coming down, filling that, I think it was a C or D gap. Singletary set him up beautifully. Kind of like Breida did in that Colts game when he took that one out wide a couple of weeks ago. So you got to have speed to get out to the outside. And as I said, especially when the Bills run those RPOs, they're inviting the run and they're containing the those runs inside and they're not scared of Singletary or Moss getting inside the tackles and then getting out the front door for a long run. So I understand a lot of people want to see more Breida, and we talked about it with Mike about how the big talk today about the fumble with Breida was charged to Josh Allen, and both really are at fault there, but that's here nor there.
That's also a very legitimate point, though. Like that, just to add one little pin. I'm sorry to cut you off there. Like your shoulder pads are right there. Like as a running back, like you and I both played running back. That sucks when the quarterback puts the ball into your shoulder pads in your chest. It's hard.
And you're getting your hands in place and your eyes, especially on these zone runs. You have reads. You have multiple reads.
Yes.
So both are at fault, right? Because that handoff was high from Josh Allen, and generally the quarterback is responsible for where the ball goes on the handoff. The running back, Breida, was at fault because he basically he didn't have it wasn't open, first of all.
Yeah.
And he was grabbing. So like I understand sometimes as running backs in this type of weather where it's super cold, where that leather ball gets very slick, you want to get your hands on it rather than having it hit you off the chest or off the belly and then bouncing off like it did. So I understand how he tried to adjust. Both are at fault. But I just, it's disappointing to see again because they were on the fringe of the red zone and on that drive too.
Again, all these little snake bit things, like either one of them could have made the difference, but they both kind of not do great, and we get a turnover.
Yeah, and so this is the final play again, fourth and long. Like there are no plays for this, and I will admit that this was the perfect time for the Patriots to pull out a cover zero look.
Good
Like, it
call.
just is. Like, you have to get rid of the ball. You don't have enough guys to block everyone up. You got 3 men in a route. Like, you're just not going to be able to block everyone up. So I really like the play and leverage. It's a double post look, 2x2 set, ball on the right hash, Beasley in the slot to the bottom, Gabriel Davis, our guy who was the target on this play, out wide to the bottom of the screen. And then you have Diggs to the top of the screen soloed with JC Jackson. And Josh does a good job here. It's the correct read, but I don't think he placed it properly. I think, Brian is over the top of Beasley. That's fine. Well, this is the leverage that you want. The double post look. Josh, one of Josh's favorite plays, first of all. He's thrown several touchdowns from the double post look. And this one, going against the wind, factor that in. I think he underthrew it. I don't think he put enough velocity behind this ball, and the wind caught it, or it just died on the way over there, and it just was not a good throw. I think he needed to throw it to the end zone over the top of Bryant. He doesn't, and Bryant makes a play on the ball.
It was a really good play from Bryant sitting there in man coverage and cover zero, and he's got Beasley, but he's playing Beasley while at the same time keeping his eyes on the QB, and he reads the throw, peels off his man to help make this play. But I think you nailed it right on the head, as we look at where that ball is. So Josh is throwing that ball to the eye in Bills. He needed to throw it more towards that first L, or maybe even between the two L's right there, right in the center of the goalpost. And again, it was windy. Weather was definitely a factor. So, and as the comment came in there from JM, he threw it off his back foot. Not great, mechanics and placement there, but it would be nice if he could have got that ball out in front a little bit more. Allow Gabriel Davis to make a play, or at the very least, don't let that defender who's not even covering the guy that you're throwing to make a play. It's the trajectory, it's the velocity, it's all of those things. It's a very heady, tremendous play from Bryant, right? Like, very kudos to him.
Not to take anything away from him.
No, not at all. But this is the throw that Josh Allen makes this throw, and the way he makes it, it allows the defender to make a play on it. And that's not what should have happened on this play. But again, good call from the Pats in a good moment, taking advantage of a situation, knowing your personnel, knowing what the offense has done, knowing the situation, and dialing up a call to force the hand. Again, what we continue to see in this theme of defenses dictating to the Bills offense and forcing their hand into scenarios where they don't want to be.
Crimson Berserker says there needs to be a pump fake to Beasley first before going over the top throw. It's tough, but that's what elite quarterbacks like Manning and Brady have done. I see what you're getting at, but we have to remember they are short blockers here. Josh Allen, he was backpedaling because they knew that they were getting a zero pressure. And these zero pressures are defensive backs. McCourty comes off the right side there because he realizes Dawson Knox is staying in the block. He hug rushes, and he's coming unblocked at Josh Allen. I don't think I want my quarterback backpedaling, getting away from the pocket, which is what these quarterbacks do. We see Mahomes and Josh Allen do it when they have that pressure. They try to buy time. I don't think a pump fake while he's backpedaling with a defensive back, screaming at you is really the best process against cover zero blitz. But again, I get what you're saying. It makes sense, but I personally was okay with that. A better throw, we're not talking about this.
Yeah.
A better throw, we're not talking about this. And no pump fake would be needed. So I get your point there, man. So we're going to wrap this up, Anthony. A month ago, I said the red zone woes, they weren't worrying me at the time. But, and I will say the last few weeks, the Bills, they've been up and down as far as wins and losses go. But they had been decent in the red zone the last couple games. This one against a good team, they were 1 for 4. So am I more worried? Yes, because now we're getting to that time, especially I said this, I did the video for the red zone during the bye week. And I'm not seeing too many different things going on. And that does worry me from a play call standpoint. That worries me from an offensive coordinator standpoint. I think Dable needs to step it up a little bit. And I think you can make yourself look a lot better by just keeping the ball in Josh Allen's hands.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I'm at. Granted, I was a little more on the worried, and I don't even say a little. I was definitely more on the worried end of the spectrum than you were come the bye week. But the thing that was kind of keeping me going was that idea like, okay, here's where we are in the season. There's still time for adjustment. There's still time for course correction, self-scouting, all these things that we know the Bills do and the Bills are good at and have shown a propensity for. And instead, we're sitting here with the same kind of warts on this red zone offense, facing the same similar issues, facing the same kind of coverages and looks from defenses, seeing the same kind of inefficiencies. And oh wow, I'm going to pause for that
Thanks,
one. Thank you
John.
so
Thank
much,
you.
John. John, for the audio listeners, John said simply the best Bills video breakdowns. Well done, attaboys here, and then with a knife.
And I want to say attaboy for John, because this guy sends me messages in Facebook Messenger. Like, he helps prep the show, basically. Like, he sent me a tweet from Mike Reese earlier today about 32 straight runs from the Patriots, and I had that in there in the moment there when we were talking with Mike Giardi. So yeah, John's a good dude. Again, he's been with us since day one, and we appreciate all the comments about these breakdowns. We love doing them. And I hope you guys take a look at the website, cover1.net, and join the Slack channel and our premium subscription, because we share a lot more content in there than people realize, and you have access to us all the time. So if you have a theory, kind of like Anthony and I, when we start going through some film, we have different theories that we want to test, whether it's with statistics or film. Guys in the chat all day are sending us questions to answer and even statistics to look up in Sports Info Solutions or PFF. So, John, appreciate you, man. You're one of our biggest supporters, and we appreciate all of the support.
And he's down in Miami. He's behind enemy lines in Dolphins territory. So yeah, we want to give him every ounce of support that we can. And I'm going to get back to some of that. Yeah, I wanted to pull up that comment there from Silas. The opportunities available. Well, first of all, Silas, thank you very much for watching and for the donation. He said the opportunities available in the air last night will be there in a few weeks. We can and should still win the division. That's, and honestly, that's the frustrating thing about last night. For all these things, for the 46 runs and only 3 passes, for the inefficiency in the red zone and the weather and all these things, the Bills are a 50-yard bomb to Stephon Diggs from taking the lead, a overthrow on a back shoulder throw to Stephon Diggs late, a couple missed reads here and there. The Bills were literally like 2 to 3 plays away from winning this game, despite all these things going
6
wrong.
yards away. They were at the 6-yard line, and they could have had a touchdown.
That's exactly what it is. Like,
come on.
And that's so frustrating. So it's not, we mentioned on the post game last night, like this team, and especially with how the AFC East is constructed right now, everyone has their flaws. Everyone has their vulnerabilities. This is not the time to panic and jump off and the season's done. Everything's over. Yes, these games are now vastly more important because we have another loss under our belt, but there are still quality opportunities for this team, and they've been close in a lot of things, and they just have to clean some areas up. And one of them is that red zone piece. And, again, I think it's very interesting. Last year, I feel like everybody thought the Bills offense was so much better than they are this year and all these things. And in many ways, like they are to a degree, but look at that red zone number, right? The Bills, it feels so bad. The Bills have a touchdown percentage of 58.82 right now. That's a red zone touchdown percentage of 2020. So basically 59%. Last year, when they set the world on fire, they were at 61%. So basically like 2 percentage points higher. And forget the ranking. They were 12th last year, 18th this year. And forget that. Just focus on that percentage. It's only 2 percentage points.
Yeah, it's 2 percentage points. And I think game for game, I think this year they have more opportunities, which is a good thing. Like they're having more red zone opportunities this year from what I can recall. But don't quote me on that. But it feels worse. It feels worse than it is. Not just from a red zone perspective, but also because, the Bills have lost a few games overall this year, and, they were rolling teams last year. So we talked about it weeks ago. The league has adjusted to the offense, and the Bills are still moving the ball. They're still moving it from the 20 to the 20. They just need to tighten up in the red zone. And so that needs to happen. And if they can start tightening up in that area, like, things are going to start rolling again. And as Mike said at the top, like, you start to get on a roll, and then next thing you know, and it doesn't take long. He said like what, 2 games leading into the playoffs, like all of a sudden they found an identity, they found a rhythm, they found what was working, and then they ran with it and made a nice run. So It was a great guest today, Mike Giardi, and another great film room session with you, Anthony. Let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Find me on Twitter at __ant. That's pro 2_ANT. And then find me here every week as the co-host here on the Film Room. Find me as the host of Disguised Coverage live on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Find me as one of the 3 co-hosts for the Cover One Fantasy Show on Thursday nights at 7:45. And find me as one of the 3 post-game co-hosts live after every Bills game with Mr. Greg Thompson and Aaron Quinn. And that's me.
Yeah, you are the workhorse of Cover One. And
Appreciate it.
on a side note, as we wrap this up, this will be the last show before I actually get detailed to the southern border. So I will be gone for a month. So we are going to try and keep the show Tuesday night at 7 p.m. But bear with us if we have to flex some things here or there, and bear with us that maybe sometimes they won't be live shows. They may be pre-recorded shows. We're going to work on that. We're going to try to, stay on schedule as much as you can, but my schedule and the way things are down there are no guarantees. So bear with us. If you're not following on the YouTube channel, make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Download it and subscribe, and then tell your friend, tell your family and your friends about the podcast. If they're not able to sit there and watch it at work, well, guess what? Hopefully we're doing a good enough job that they can listen to it at work and get the feedback and breakdowns from us here in the Film Room. So that's Anthony Prohaska from Disguised Coverage. I'm Erik Turner. We'll see you next week.